Hey, what's up everybody, Nexel here. Today we are playing Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, and I know this is late. This is like a full 7 days late almost, but I want to give you my thoughts on the falling price deal in case you haven't pulled into it already and are still thinking about it. So last week on Thursday we got a new falling price deal, and it will guarantee at least one tier 5 or tier 6 medal pre-strengthened to 1, 2, or 3 special attack dots. It will introduce 3 new medals, so it'll introduce the tier 6 Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Terra and 0.2 Sora, and the tier 5 Lingering Will. Now, if you manage to guilt any of these before the end of October 2nd, you will get the Kingdom Hearts 0.2 King Mickey B medal pre-strengthened to 2 dots. So if you're able to get all of them guilted, all 3 of them guilted, you will have enough to guilt that Kingdom Hearts 0.2 King Mickey B medal with the 2 traits and the full guilt without having to use Mickey and Brooms. So here are those conditions one more time, but that's not to say you can't use Mickey and Brooms on these medals themselves. I'll go ahead and describe whether or not they're worth once we get to the effects. So here it is, the campaign, and here are the details again. This is how it breaks down. So the first draw is going to cost you the same amount, 3,000 jewels. The next one's 2,500, 2,200, 2,000, and then 1,900 on that 5th draw onwards. Now, I said this in a past video, these banners, in my opinion, are only worth pulling if you could pull 5 or more times. And the reason for that is once you do all the math, if, let's say you're starting out with 15,000 jewels, normally that gets you only 5 pulls. In this case, 15,000 jewels will get you actually 6 pulls. So with the falling price deal, it's kind of like a buy 5 get 1 free kind of deal, or you could just save the jewels in general. But with that being said, they do come with guaranteed tier 5s or tier 6s, which is really, really good because the meta is starting to move to where people have to have tier 5s pretty much on almost every slot, tier 5s or tier 6s on every slot in order to guarantee like high score challenge rankings or Coliseum rankings, or even just general things in like let's say the weekly gem deals. If you have tier 5s, tier 6s on all your slots, that's really good. Odds are you're not going to have any problems, especially if you get them guilted. Now, I'm going to refer to the video that I talked about yesterday, where when you pull into this, there's only a 3% chance that you'll get the medal that you want. So let's say I wanted HD Nominate, tier 5 medal, but based on the number of tier 5s and tier 6s in the game, my chances of pulling her would only be a 3% chance. So that's kind of low, but again, tier 5s and tier 6s are really good. If you're able to guilt them, it'll accelerate your game so fast because they're buffers and attack medals at the same time, for the most part. So I definitely think that this banner is worth pulling into if you need that extra boost, if you need that extra strength, because getting into tier 5s and tier 6s can easily advance your game really, 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 really far. Now, if you draw into the 0.2 Terra, 0.2 Sora, or Lingering Will, it'll automatically come pre-strengthened to 3 dots. So again, that's only 3 Mickey and Brooms you need to use if you want to guilt it. And there's also the chance of getting it boosted. Note that this deal does not have a guaranteed within X turns, meaning you could draw into it a gajillion times and never get one of these new medals, or you could draw into it once and get it right away. So there's a range there, there's a risk. So these are our 3 medals. Let's go ahead and take a look at them. So the 0.2 Terra, it's going to be a tier 6, upright green, costs 6 gauges, and it hits all targets. It will deal 9 exceptionally powerful hits and restore 3 gauges. So it's like SP Vanitas, where you're going to want to, put something like Attack Boost 3 Max, SP Gauge 1 on there. That way when you activate the skill, you're actually plussing 2 gauges. The trade-off is you have to go into this medal with at least 6 gauges for even that medal to activate its skill. So it's really good because it's an attack medal and it restores gauges, so technically you could kind of see it as helping you 2 times in a row if you can get an Attack Boost Max SP Gauge on this medal for the skill. Alright, the next one is going to be 0.2 Sora. It's going to be a upright blue tier 6, costs 4 gauges and hits all enemies. I'm immediately gonna say this medal is not worth it because we have EX Xion EX coming soon, and Xion EX is easily outclassing this medal. It only costs 3 gauges, it's going to hit everything, reverse blue, and it is going to do the same thing that Sephiroth EX and Roxas Art EX do, except it's going to be magic. And it doesn't come with the whole inflicts more damage the higher the slot number, which is, in my opinion, a really, really bad thing for tier 6s, just because odds are, unless you're whaling into the game, unless you have a lot of really good medals, then odds are you're gonna want to have to put this later down the line after all your buffers for damage purposes. So with that being said, I wouldn't invest into getting the 0.2 Sora at all. But again, that's just my personal opinion. If someone knows a way to make it a little bit more useful, by all means, the floor is yours. But the last one is going to be Lingering Will. It is going to be an upright tier 5 speed medal that costs 3 gauges and hits random targets. It's going to raise your speed strength by 5 tiers for 1 turn, and it's going to deal 11 exceptionally powerful hits. What's going to make this medal really good is that it has, I believe, a 5.9 multiplier. So 5.9 multiplier, tier 5 guilt, so that's 5.9 times 2.5 for your total multiplier for that medal. That makes it really, 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 really strong. And it increases your speed strength by 5 tiers for 1 turn. So going back to the random targeting medals, my take on them is that they're really good if you're going up against one really strong enemy. So for example, let's say you're going into Union Cross. The extra hard bosses are pretty much going to be the focus of all of the attacks of a random target medal. So that whole multiplier, that whole attack is going straight into that enemy, and you don't have to worry about it just hitting randomly a bunch of different things. So that makes this really, really powerful. It's also good in raids, because as you're going through the raid, you're going to want to be able to, down the line, focus all your attacks on the main body, because, again, usually the main body has more HP than any of the appendages, limbs, whatever you want to call them. So random target medals are really good for that, because they allow you to do that spread damage initially, and then down the line you do focus damage, sniping damage onto that main enemy. So that's where I believe the strength of this comes from. The strength of any random target medal, because they usually have very, very high multipliers. This medal is also good for one turning if you have multiple enemies that are sort of weak-ish. So unlike a sniping medal that targets only one enemy, you know, that would only allow you, let's say you're running into a fight with 2 enemies, having a medal that snipes only lets you knock out one of them, even if that one medal does so much damage that it was no-brainer that it would knock out that enemy. With a random target medal, if you go into that 2 enemy fight and they're both weak enough, you can get both of them with a random target medal. So that's another good way to use random target medals. And then here is that 0.2 King Mickey B that you would get if you're able to guilt one of those medals mentioned above. So it's going to deal 2 hits, lowers target's defense by 1 tier, and decreases PSM defense by 3 tiers for 1 turn. Again, not really worth it when you think of things like Xion EX, Sephiroth EX, Roxas Art EX. So I don't think that this medal is particularly worth it, especially since it's really easily outclassed by things like Tifa and Aerith, because that decreases defense by 2 tiers and also increases your general attack. And the general attack and the general defense buffing and debuffing are significantly more important than the PSM attack buffing or the PSM defense debuffing. So that's my take on this banner. Again, it's worth pulling if you could pull more than 5 times, because it essentially becomes a buy 5 get 1 free kind of deal, assuming you start with 15,000 jewels. So that's my take on it. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to leave them in that comment section below, and I'll try my best to answer them. And until the next video, everyone, take it easy.